Do you have one of these or one of these? Perhaps you're in the market for a new iPhone or a new iPad. Well, in this video, I'm going to break down and cover what you need to consider when you're selecting an iPhone or an iPad, when you're buying a new one, or maybe just get you more familiar with the one that you already have. There's a lot of stuff to consider. There's the processor power, there's the memory, there's the screen size, the storage. There's a lot. So what I want to do is break it down for you, remove some of that jargon that you might be trying to work through at the moment and make it simple as possible so that you can make the best decision if you are in fact in the market. But if you're brand new here, who am I and what are we doing here? Well, my name is Pete. This is Studio Live Today, where my goal is to help you create, record, and release your best music. So we're going to be looking at iPads and iPhones under the scope of using them for music production, because believe it or not, and I know many of you do because you already use it, but the iPhone and the iPad are amazing music production platforms. They've got enough speed and processing power and storage to create, and there's a bunch of great apps, including GarageBand, which I have a soft bot for, as well as a bunch of others that can help you create music. So if you have not subscribed to the channel and that sounds like the sort of stuff you're into, then consider subscribing. If you get value out of this today, I'd love it if you hit the like button and leave me a comment. If you're watching on the replay, if you're here live, I'd love to hear your feedback and your interaction. Let me know your comments, your questions you have. Do you already use an iPhone or an iPad? And if so, which one do you use? And would you recommend it? So let's help folks out here by doing that here today. Big news here today. I'll let you know up the front and I'll give you some more information later. I've just launched a Patreon page, so you folks are the first to know. And if you do get a lot of value out of the content here, I'd love for you to consider jump over to patreon.com/PeteJohns. Check out what I have available there. It won't change anything that I do here. If you're a regular and you're thinking, oh no, is this going to change the videos we get here? No, it won't at all. It's just an optional extra for those folks who have been asking and saying, Pete, how do we support you? Well, now you've actually got a way for as little as $1 a month. You can go over there and be part of the Patreon Studio Live Today community. So I wanted to let you know that out front. But let's jump in. The format that we have today and the format that I have on my live streams. I value your time. I don't want to spend the next hour if you don't have an hour. So my first 10 to 15 minutes is usually my opening monologue or my rant, if you like. But what I like to do there is focus in, laser focused on just the facts. So I'm going to go over the high level stuff. So if you're here saying, hey, I'm about to go out and buy an iPhone or an iPad, I want to know the basics, stick around. And then if you need to move on, then so be it. That it's fine. If you want to hang around and continue to see what we've got on, what I'll then do is chat to the folks that are here live and answer any questions, look at any comments that they have. And then we'll do a deep dive into some of the specifics around some of the different iPads and iPhones. And we're going to talk about the big change, the new iOS 13 and iPadOS, which are in the works for this fall. Is that what? Yeah, that's what it's called. We call it autumn. But yeah, this fall we're going to have new iPhones, new iPads, and new iOS updates. So that is what we're going to be going through here today. Welcome to those folks that are here. We've got Amaracia here live. We've got Jade Star, and we've got Storm Plays. We've got Beats by Inspiration, and we've got a bunch of other folks here. So thank you all for joining me live. So let's start with the overview. If you're considering a new iPhone or a new iPad, what do you need to know? Like if you know nothing and you're walking into the Apple Store right now, you would see a bunch of shiny black and white and silver rectangles, and you would go, what do I look for? What am I actually buying here? And even especially if you're trying to buy secondhand, if you're on Amazon or if you're on eBay or if you're in a secondhand store, how do you know what to buy? Well, I got you covered, and I got you covered in a few ways here. I've actually got over on Studio Live Today, my home away from home here on the web, I've put together a couple of guides. So I'm going to show you those quickly because these are like the companion guides for what I'll be talking about here today. So if we jump over and take a look, here we are. We're at studiolivetoday.com/iPad, and I've got my iPad buyer's guide, which you can scroll through here and take a look at some of my recommendations. But the cool thing here is the buyer's guide that I have up the top here. So it's going to be a bit small on the screen here, but what I have on this one is I go through and I list every model right up to the latest iPad Air 3 and Mini 5 for 2019, every model, Are they compatible with iOS 12, the current one? Will they be compatible with iPadOS or iOS 13, which is the new one coming soon? Will they run the latest version of GarageBand, which I know is important for me and a lot of folks because GarageBand's kind of the de facto. If they can run GarageBand, there's a good chance they'll run other apps as well. And then importantly, we've got the storage minimum and maximum. So we'll talk more about storage a little bit later. And then the model numbers. So if we hone in on this final column here, these are the model numbers. Now, if you've got an iPhone or an iPad, it's a little bit hard to see because it's absolutely tiny. But right down here at the bottom, there's a little number. It's an A followed by 4 numbers. And that's your A number of your model number for your iPhone or your iPad. So that's how you can identify which one you have. So I've spoken to people and I've said, so what device do you have? And they're like, it's an iPad. I don't actually know what it is. So I can point them to this and say, okay, go there, find your model number in this list, find your A number. You'll then be able to see what actual model you have, and then you can work backwards to work out what it can and can't do. We have the same with the iPhone buyer's guide here. So the exact same thing here. If you're in the market for an iPhone, it's just red, which means it goes faster, as we know. And we've got exactly the same information here. Everything from the original iPhone, which doesn't run much these days, funnily enough, right up to our iPhone XS and XR and Maxes and all those good things that we have here and the same sort of information we have available. So that's a good way to get started. Down in the description, you'll find links to those two. There's also 2 videos down there. So I did a video guide to buying an iPhone and buying an iPad, which this is sort of building on. This live stream is building on those because they do need to be updated. They were about 6 months ago and things move fast. So I probably need to change it because some of the recommendations, which we'll be talking about today, may be a little bit out of date, but we're all doing okay. So considering a new iPhone or iPad, go to those guides to start with. That's going to help you understand a little bit about the different models that we talk about. Now, first question you have, do you buy new or do you buy secondhand? Now, iOS devices are pretty good in that as long as they're not they'd show no signs of actually, being dropped in the toilet or significant damage to them, then they last pretty well. The thing to consider here is that secondhand, the biggest problem you're going to have is battery life because these things don't have easily replaceable batteries and the batteries do wear out over time. So, for instance, my iPhone 6S Plus, which I still love and still use, lasts about 3 hours if I'm trying to use it out and about. So it's not a useful device for taking with me as a phone. That's why I upgraded to the 10S. However, it is still good as a music creation tool. And as long as I have a portable battery or I'm near a power supply, I can fix that up without any problem. So if you are considering that, that's just one thing to keep in mind. Pretty much everything else, the iPads and iPhones, they both hold their value well. They'll continue running well. And as long as you check that compatibility guide and you're not buying something too old, secondhand could be a really good way. Get a refurbished or a secondhand iPad or iPhone. Go to places like your thrift shops and your cash converters here in Australia. Maybe don't go to cash converters. They're probably stolen. But yeah, you can go and buy a secondhand. So that's sort of phase one. And then second is, well, are you going to buy an iPhone or an iPad? And you might think, why would I want an iPhone? Surely the iPad's better because it's got a much bigger screen. And yeah, that is definitely the biggest factor that you're going to have because if you've got a nice big screen like that, using your music apps, I'll just open up here, using your music apps, yeah, there's a lot of dials. And if you've got fingers like mine that are not exactly, thin and nimble, then yeah, you're going to be struggling to adjust. So if you're running something like GarageBand here on the iPad, it's downloading that. We'll get back to that. Hold the line. We'll get back to that in just a moment. If you're using GarageBand, then yeah, if you're on the iPhone, then some of the controls are going to be very small and very fiddly for you. So consider that in terms of screen size. You can actually have an iPhone and then not even actually use the phone function. So a lot of folks I know have bought an old iPhone 6S because they're a pretty good entry-level iPhone or an iPhone 7, and they've just not put a SIM card in it, just using it on Wi-Fi and using it just for music creation. So don't think that phone means you have to have a phone contract and all those expensive things that go along with it. You can use the phone just as a music creation device. So that's sort of the first couple of questions. The other thing to keep in mind, iPad versus iPhone, is that the iPad will run everything. So there are some apps, so Final Touch, the mastering app on iPad that I use, not available on iPhone. Stark, the guitar amp simulator that I use on iPad, not available on iPhone. So if you want universal compatibility with all of the apps and you want all the things, then iPad is probably the way to go. iPhone will run most things, but there will be some iPad exclusive things. So keep that in mind. Now, the different models, this is where it gets pretty intense because we're talking about Apple's naming conventions here. And what we'll do is we'll jump back because I will use my own guide here to guide us because what you'll notice here, the iPhones is a little bit easier because if we look over here to the left and we look at all the names of the iPhones, we go from iPhone to iPhone 3, go figure, to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 10. We don't have an iPhone 9. I don't know what the problem was there, but no iPhone 9. So it's pretty easy to see, right? If you've got a 6 versus an 8, the 8's going to be better. It's going to have a bit better processor, generally more storage and more memory and more processing power. And the same, the 10 is going to be better than a 7. So the numbering system actually works quite well there. So when you're out there looking around at your models, and you'll see there, the reason I've got that grey border around iPhone 6s is that they are the ones that are going to be future compatible. So when iOS 13 comes out in a couple of months' time, everything that's before the iPhone 6s, so your 6 Plus, your 6, your 5s, everything else is not going to be compatible with iOS 13. Everything in the grey zone is. So if you want longevity, you got a 6s, a 6s Plus, or an SE, you're going to have it for now, but the deeper you go down into this list, the more future forward compatibility you're likely to have. So like with everything, there's always going to be that tipping point. You don't have to get the latest and greatest, absolutely not. And in fact, Apple still sell like iPhone 8s and 7s because they know that not everyone wants to go out and spend $2,000. Not everyone's crazy like Pete over here and spends the equivalent of $2,000 on a phone, but they'll sell some of the older models as well. On the iPad side, things are a little bit different. So as you may be aware, iPads come in 3 varieties. There's the standard iPads, which are called the iPad Air these days, but they're just your regular iPad. Well, they're sort of called Air. We'll get to that in a minute. There's your iPad minis, which are the smaller ones, about the 7-inch devices, and then your iPad Pros. So iPad Pros come in 10-inch, and then the big boy, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So if we take a look here at the iPad guide, I've split it up here. So we've got the regular iPads are these first ones here, and again, we've done the grey box. So iPad Air 2, iPad 2017, 2018, and 2019, unofficially called the iPad Air 3. See what I mean? They went from iPad Air back to just iPad and then back to iPad Air for reasons that only Apple hierarchy know about. But the good thing is here, I've broke them down in chronological order, in order of release. And then right over here on the right, again, we've got these model numbers and we've got the storage capacity sizes for you there. So you can find out what you need to do. The minis. So again, we've got the Mini 2, the Mini 3, the Mini 4, the Mini 5. The 4s and 5s are the only ones that are going to be future compatible. So keep that in mind if you want the smaller version of the iPad. And iPad minis are actually great for music creation because you get a good combination. You can run all the apps that you can in an iPad that I talked about before, but you don't have the big size. So it's only really, the iPad mini is not that much bigger than, the Plus and the Max phones really. But it has a little bit more screen real estate and you can run all the apps. So that's a pretty good option. And then, of course, the iPad Pros. And I've realized that in my latest version here, I don't have the grey box around the iPad Pros. So I need to fix that on this. But all of the Pros, so whether you're on the 1st gen, 2nd gen, 3rd gen, they are all going to be future compatible. They're going to run iPadOS and they will run all of your things. So if you can grab any of the Pros, which are very good, there are many pros for the pros, as people like Jade Star here on the live stream will know, who use an iPad Pro. I'm rhyming all the time. I'm a poet and I didn't even was aware of it. So that is the breakdown of the models. So you can see here, the reason that I do videos like this is that if you are someone who doesn't know this stuff, and I didn't know this stuff before I went and did all of this, then I wanted to actually help people understand all of the different options that you have. Try and break down the jargon. You'll notice I haven't talked about processors. I haven't said A9 and A10 and how much gig of RAM they have and all these sort of things, because that's important if you want it, like if you're getting into the detail. But if you just want to know, will it run the apps I want? Will it last me a while? That's what I wanted to talk about in this one. So I hope you're getting some value and this is helping you if you are considering upgrading, buying a new iPad or iPhone, or maybe you're going to get into it for the very first time. That would be super cool. I would be excited if I was you and you'd never been in this world before. It is a great place to be. Alrighty, so yes, check out the description there for my buyer's guide, and you'll be able to go in there. There's the two videos that you can watch about iPad and iPhone. Then there's the two buyer's guide links, which will help you get up and running. Now, what we're going to do is when I return after I have a chat with the kind folks who are here live, we'll be taking a look at screen size. So we'll just be jumping into that a little bit more. Storage. So I'll start talking about how much storage is enough and how much should you be considering. And then we'll also take a deep dive into the new functionality. So iPadOS and iOS 13. What will they mean and what will you need to do with them? So we will jump over and check out the chat here and the folks that we have here live and see what's going on here. So we've got a few more folks. We've got Alex Cruz, who is here. We've got Gyro, welcome to the stream. Kurt Lorenz is here as well. So, and B Kern is with us on the stream. So let's take a look and see what people are talking about here. So Jade Star, who I mentioned, is running an iPad Pro 12.9-inch 500 gig beast. Yes, so it's so darn powerful. Indeed, it is. And Aramarcia using one right now to watch this. The iPad Pro 2nd Gen, almost perfect with GarageBand. Yes, I would agree with that. Kurt Lorenz is running the iPhone 8 Plus, a very good device. Storm Plays is on the iPhone XR, the 10R. Great one to use. Yeah, I love the 10R. I nearly bought one. I bought the 10S. I splurged in the end, but the 10R is a great model and yeah, has some really good features. B. Kern still doing everything on iPhone 7 Plus, considering a change to an iPad. So perfect timing on the vid. Well, hopefully you have actually got some value already, and you're going to get even more. And I can help you, guide you towards that decision because it is a tough one. People are like, oh, I want to get an iPad for music, and what should I get? And I'm like, oh, okay. I've got about 10 questions to ask you because it's not a simple one to actually answer. Aramarcia, I have the iPhone 10R as well. Too small for me to use GarageBand on. Yeah, so if you've got the fingers like me, sometimes you need the iPad to be doing all the things. Darren Bryant's here. Hello, Darren. Always a pleasure to have you here on the live stream. We're talking about LumaFusion, so some chatting about LumaFusion, the video editor, which is a very cool app as well. Big Earn, you can upload your music to YouTube with iMovie that comes with iPhone. It's a bit clunky. So we're talking about how to actually export your music there. If you've created music on your iPad or your iPhone, yeah, things like GarageBand used to be able to upload directly to YouTube. They don't anymore, which is bad. So Jade says new battery for that 6 Plus is only around $70. And that's from Apple. Well, that's a great tip. See, this is why I do these things and why I love having you folks here live, because yes, I do. I need a new battery for this 6 Plus. And actually, I should have known that. You know why? Because my wife's 6S, not the Plus, had the same problem. And she took it in and they were going to charge her $70 and then they didn't because they're Apple. And for all the things, and I know Jade agrees with me on this one because she's had similar experiences, but for all of the things that people say about Apple and being the big, greedy, heartless corporation that just wants to sell you a new shiny device every 2 years, I've actually found them to be really cool. I think as long as you're reasonable and you're not expecting the world, I've had probably 3 or 4 free repairs for things. One which was like water damage even, and I just said, oh, it was just raining really heavily, and they're like, it can happen. Here you go, we'll replace it for free. So yeah. There's some good things. Your mileage may vary. Don't expect exactly that to happen for you. Gyro says, "Hi, did you get my last message?" I'm not sure. I can't see if you sent a message here or if you emailed me or if you sent it via another means. Yes, send it again or let me know where, and I will definitely try and get onto that. The problem these days, I'm going to slight side note rant here. I know, woe is me to have people messaging me on all these platforms, but because I'm on YouTube, because I'm on Facebook, I get a lot of Facebook messages. I get emails to a couple of different email addresses. There's Reddit forums. There's a lot of places. Some people will say, "Hey, did you get my message?" And I'm like, ooh, yeah, where did you message me that? And it's not made easier by the fact that some people have different names on all the different platforms. So they'll be like, oh, it's me. I'm this name from YouTube. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. If you could all just be Jade Star and be Jade Star everywhere, it would help me out. Alrighty. Aramarcia says, everyone should call the new Apple Pro monitor the Pro 10500R display. 10X being 10, D being 500. Oh. I did look at that display. I think I made a joke in my other video that they said, here's a new display. It's $6,000, and everyone applauded. I'm like, yeah. And then I do realize, I think it might have been Jade or someone that said, yes, that's not for you, Pete. That's for actual professional people, developers. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. People that already have the money, that can afford the money. Alrighty. So Jade says, I probably wouldn't have gotten a 500 gigabyte iPad Pro if I knew this year would have been where they added the storage. Yeah, we'll talk about the storage because that is definitely a consideration. When we talk about storage sizes, that will be something that we need to actually factor in there as well. So Aramarcia says, I wonder if the iPad Pro 3 is better than the iPad Pro 2 or worse considering the lack of headphone jack and how fast GarageBand drains power. Yeah, it's an interesting one too. Lack of headphone jack. In fact, I should put that in my notes here because that is something that we will talk about in our deep dive in just a moment because it's definitely important to some people. Alex Cruz says, is the iPhone 8 going to support iOS 13? It certainly is. iOS 6S and above are going to be supporting the new iOS 13, which will be cool. And Goth Demon, welcome to you on the iPhone XS, which is a very nice device, which I'm also sporting here these days. I'm lucky enough to have picked one of those up, which is, yeah, it's changed my creation, and I'll tell you how it's done that in just a few moments. Excuse me. So Storm Plays, thanking Aramarcia for his advice, and yeah, we're all caught up here. And Jade says, yeah, 35,000 is nothing to a pro developer when a new beast like the Mac Pro will crush their usual workflow. Totally true. So if you're making $300,000 a year, and you can make $500,000 a year if you increase your speed by having a faster computer, then yeah, you're right. 35,000 to spend on that is actually not going to be exactly that much. So it's all relative, and that's probably when I talk to people about this sort of stuff. I'll say something to someone, and I'll be like, okay, so the best value is probably the iPad Air 2 at the moment. They're like, why can't I get an iPad Pro 3rd gen with a terabyte? I'm like, well, you can, but it's $3,000. They're like, oh, that's okay. I've got $3,000. So yeah, the first question is probably what you're going to do with it, but also what you actually have to spend and what your current situation is. So yeah, don't feel bad if you're like me and you have to spend 2 years waiting, saving, and working out what you're going to spend your hard-earned money on. That's totally cool too. For some other people, they don't have the same considerations. Alrighty, so thank you for those who are here live and who are chatting away there. Some great points and some great feedback that you are all providing to each other there. Let us now jump in and do a bit of a deep dive into what is going to change and a little bit more about selecting and processing power and all of these sort of things. So let's start with the actual processing. I talked briefly about the different chips. So there's the A8, the A9, the A10. There's all the different chips that are in all these different iPads and iPhones. The thing, and we had a question there before from Brad, I think, what will run iOS 13 and iPadOS. And it's basically anything that has the A9 chip or better. So that's why the cutoff point is that 6S, because that was when they introduced the A9 chip, and the iPad Mini 4, the iPad Air 2, which is the one that I have here and the one that I still recommend for those folks that are getting into creation. It's actually really affordable and really good value at the moment. If you check out the video down there, you'll be able to see my recommendation is this one. So spoiler alert, this is what I give you, but I think I tell you that at the start of the video anyway. I had someone ask me this week, because like I do on these streams and like I do in my videos, if my video is answering a question, I'll say, here's the question, the answer is this, now let's talk about why that's the answer. And someone actually said to me, doesn't that reduce your watch time? Like YouTube these days is all about watch time. You want to keep people engaged, you want to keep them watching. And my response was, I would rather give the answer up front, and then the people that want to know the reason why will stay, and the people that don't can move on. And that's the way I prefer it, because when I'm watching a video, I hate it when someone takes half an hour and then at the end they're like, oh, and here's the conclusion, it's this. And you're like, oh, that's an anticlimax, and I just spent 30 minutes watching you tell me that you were going to tell me something, only to just tell me something. So just tell me something, right? So yeah, that's my philosophy on this, because I would rather someone watch for 2 minutes of a 30-minute video and leave happy, and then maybe come back and watch another one, than watch 30 minutes of a video, get really peeved off at me because I've wasted all of their time, and then unsubscribe and leave and never watch again. So yes, I probably do the bad things by the YouTube algorithms and all that sort of thing, but I would rather do the right thing by people, which is you. All right, let's talk about so the processor. The faster, the better, right? So, what is it going to do? Well, it's going to run things faster. Your apps are going to run faster and more smoothly, and less chance of crashing. You're going to be able to use more apps at the same time. So, especially on your iPad Pros, you've got all these great multitasking abilities. But for me, if I'm on my iPad here and I want to flick between different apps, I want to be running 3 or 4 different things at once. I can do that. For things like GarageBand, where I'm running things like the Stark app sim that I'm running on this one, which is down here somewhere. It's hard to do this upside down and inside out. Do I have... No, I'm on the wrong track. Anyway, trust me that I have the Stark amp sim. There it is. So if you're running things like plugins like this, so amp simulators like this, then yeah, that's an iOS v3 plugin that I use for my guitar. Stark, really cool, by the way. Search Stark, Pete John Stark on my channel, and you'll see some reviews of that. So I'm using that to record guitars on my current track. And the thing was, I ran into some trouble because I had 3 guitar tracks, and I tried to add a 4th one, and the iPad says, "Computer says no," and it shut down, and it crashed the app, and it crashed the plugin, and things were not happy. If I was using a more advanced processor, chances are it would be able to run more instances of that without having the same problem. So keep that in mind if you are in the market and if you're looking for these sort of things. That if you're looking to do more complicated sort of songs and arrangements, you want to have all 32 tracks, you want to be using plugins on them, you want to be using a heap of processing, consider one of the more powerful iPads or iPhones, because you may run into trouble otherwise. If you're making beats and loops with the virtual instruments and you're very rarely past 8 tracks, then I wouldn't worry so much. You can get away with something a lot less powerful if you are not doing all the things. But if you are one of the Jade Stars of the world, or the Aramasea, who Aramasea said he's working on a 17-minute track at the moment, and I don't know how you can spend that much time. I spend 17 minutes making my entire song. If it was 17 minutes long, it would be one take. So not quite true, but not far from the truth. Yes. So if you are someone like Aramasea, someone like Jade Star, who is here on the stream, then yes, you may need more processing power so that you can do more things and more tracks. Let's talk about screen size, shall we? So music apps, as I talked about, have a lot of stuff to touch. So let's show you the Stark amp sim again, because the reason, and I've asked Clevgrand, who makes Stark, why they don't have it on the iPhone, and I think I already know the answer, because look at the size of these. So this is on my 9-inch screen. So if I'm going to be turning this dial, I'm changing things now apparently, but you can see the size of those dials, and then you can see the size of my big fingers. Yeah, it would not make sense for these to actually be used by someone on an iPhone. The reason that I do want it on the iPhone is that when I take my mix with me and I airdrop it over to my iPhone, suddenly Stark doesn't work. So it would be good to have it there just as playback. So just make it compatible, even though it can't be used. But yeah, there are some advantages to having the iPad, to having the bigger screen size, because again, as I said before, you can run more apps, and you can actually touch and not press the wrong button and not do the wrong thing. Things like editing as well. So you can see the size of this screen, and I actually edit most of my videos on this screen in portrait mode too. So yeah, I'm a bit of a masochist in that way. I probably should use my iPad, but this is always with me. So if I've you got those 5-minute, 10-minute downtime, I can edit together a video in 10 minutes. So I take my phone with me, I have my footage on there, and I can do it. And the storage I have on here lets me do that. We'll talk about that in a moment. But screen size is really important to think about. And the best way to check out screen size, if you're in a town that has an Apple store, they don't care if you go in there and spend 4 hours playing with all their different stuff. In fact, they want you to. They're one of the few companies that they don't do the high pressure sales thing. They're always there and hovering around wearing their blue shirts if you want them. But you can just go in there and spend 4 hours and just play with everything and just run GarageBand and start creating. Literally go in there. Everyone will have GarageBand on it. Load up GarageBand and start creating a song. And you'll soon know whether the screen of the iPhone 8 or the iPhone 10 is going to be too big, too small. You're going to play with the iPad mini, the regular iPad, the 12.9-inch Pro, and what you'll probably do is walk out going, I really want the 12.9-inch Pro. I can't live without it because you can do so much more stuff on it. But then you'll look at the price tag and go, maybe I'll just get the new iPad Air instead. So that is a good way to go if you don't know about the screen sizes, you don't know what's going to work for you. All right, let's talk storage, because storage is Tough one. And it was Jade or Aramasia that was mentioning what we have at the moment is in iOS 12 and earlier, so iOS 11 and 12, Apple integrated Files, their new Files app, into the iOS, which was a very, can I say, clunky implementation of a file system. So before we had nothing, and then we got Files. We went, yay, we have a Files app in iOS 11 and iOS 12. But it had some issues. So yes, you could link it with your Google Drive, you could link it with your Dropbox, you could transfer files to and from the cloud. But because Apple have their own sort of proprietary format, things like .band files in your GarageBand, a lot of other file types, you had to actually zip them up using a separate program, and then you had to transfer them across. And then when you brought them back, you had to transfer them across, you had to unzip them. It was clunky. And in terms of external storage, forget about it. So there were and are a few options. So there's things like the Western Digital My Passport Wi-Fi Extreme Deluxe with a cherry on top. Can't remember exactly what it's called. I did a video about these recently. There's the RAV Power, which can let you actually wirelessly connect. So all of these things were wireless, and they all had to use proprietary third-party plugins and software to actually get things. And in fact, I reviewed the SanDisk. What was it called? The SanDisk Ultra something something. Let me just find it here. I'll search my own YouTube channel because that's just how I roll. If I search SanDisk, the iExpand is what it was called. So I did a review of this one. Just bring this up to show you. I won't play my own video. Oh, there we go. So this is the one that I did. So the SanDisk iExpand there. In fact, I'll just play a little bit. Transfer files to and from a standard USB flash drive using a Lightning to USB adapter cable. All right, I'll stop that. Otherwise, I might get a copyright strike from my own video, which would be weird. Hopefully, that doesn't happen. But yeah, you can see there that we can't use a standard one. I'll get rid of that weird man on the screen. We can't use a standard USB flash drive. Even with the Lightning to USB adapter, the file system doesn't support it. So your external hard drives, your flash drives, your SD cards and SD card readers, no dice. Whereas now, in iOS 13 and iPadOS, they will be supported. So that is the news, and the good news is that, yes, we will have support for the ability to plug in our USB flash drives, our USB hard drives into, and because a lot of folks have the beta release, the developer release, they've already started showing how this works, and few bugs to iron out, but it looks like it's going to be pretty cool to be able to just like that. That would be the ultimate if you could just plug in, grab just a 64 gig just off the shelf or a flash drive, plug it in, transfer off a bunch of your files, your WAV files, your big files, your samples, whatever, and then just free up some space. So I say all of that business to say this, which is that how much should you actually choose? What should you actually go with? So if we go back, if I can find where I put them, let's go back to my guide. Here's the iPad guide to start with, and it's going to be a bit tricky to be able to see it because if I zoom out, oh, that's not too bad. If you're watching on a small screen, ironically, you won't be able to see much of this. But what you'll see over here on the right is we've got the storage minimum and maximum for each device. So if we go with my current recommendation, the iPad Air 2, it starts at 16 gigabytes and goes up to 128 gigabytes. I would not go 16, and I would be really hesitant to go 32. You can see that the minimum sizes for a lot of these are 16 or 32. I don't think you'll be happy in a few months' time once you've started creating and starting filling that up if you've got 32. I think 64, which is what I have on my iPad Air 2, is a nice sweet spot here. I think you can definitely get away with 64 gig, but yeah, I think anything less than that, you are going to struggle a bit. Sorry, I'm having a few issues with the stream here at the moment. I will just wait for OBS to catch up and catch its breath and get back. I think I'm doing too many things on my computer at once, and OBS is saying, could you please just slow down and stop doing that? All right, I'm going to close down some of these windows. Ironically, I just updated the memory on my laptop from like I doubled it. So yeah, I should be getting better performance. I've got 32 gig of RAM in here now, but it might be my internet connection that's dropping down a little bit here, but that's all right. We will soldier on and continue here. I might actually close down some of these windows. I'm pushing things a bit too far. Make sure I don't close down the chat so I can chat to you folks as well, and don't close down my notes. I think it's Chrome that is causing me issues here with my memory. We'll soldier on, and I'll assume that you can still hear me and still see me okay. So more is better. I would go at least 64 gig. I moved from 64 up to 256 on my new iPhone, and it was a game changer. So just the ability to not have to spend a lot of time shifting things off of my phone all the time. You can get away with it with things like Google Drive, with iCloud Drive, with some of the other things you can use. But I would consider getting more. If you can afford more storage, go for more storage. More is definitely going to help you out. And B. Kern here said, should going from 256 gig on the iPhone down to smaller storage on the iPad Air be a concern? Well, yeah, I do find it so much easier to have more storage on the iPhone than to getting less on the iPad. But because you can so easily airdrop between the two, then I don't think it's going to be a major issue. And Big Kern says, would strictly be using the iPad for GarageBand music. So yeah, because you can use iCloud Drive storage, you can airdrop them back to your iPhone when you're not using those projects. You can basically just make sure you've got all your current projects on your iPad, and then it doesn't really matter what you have. If you have that same stuff on your iPhone, you can transfer between the two. So that is a cool thing. Jade Star says, I finally tested out the mouse this week on the iPad. It was so cool. Great experience. So yeah, let's start talking about some of these additional things that we're going to get. So mouse support is coming. Oh, bang the mic. Mouse support is coming, sorta, kinda. It is coming to iPadOS, and it is one of the accessibility features. So it's not going to be like a pointer where you're going to have, right click for context menus. It's not going to change the way you use the interface, because it is meant for accessibility for folks that can't use their finger and can't use the touchscreen. But it is going to be a good thing, like to have the ability to use the mouse, even if it's just the normal sort of touch interface. And there are some, I haven't looked at it in detail because I haven't got the new developer OS here, but yeah, there are definitely going to be ways that you're going to be able to use this, and it's going to help your workflow to be able to click, and you can click and highlight and do all sorts of cool things. And looks like there's some cool options in there. So if you have been hanging out for a mouse, and I think I mentioned in another video, I did a video saying mouse support is not available in iOS, and then like a week later, it's like, yeah, we kind of will be having it, but it's not on your iPhone, and it's not going to be universal across the board. If that makes sense. So what else will they do? Well, one of the interesting things will be how older file systems will work with the new file system. So how having a device that's not supported, that's running iOS 12 or earlier, and then a device running iOS 13 or iPadOS, how they'll interact. Obviously, Apple will have to find a way, and I'm assuming just airdropping and doing the things that you do now will be fine. But that will be something for me, because I've got a few older devices that aren't going to run iOS 13 or iPadOS. It'll be interesting to see what the difference is. And because I've got an iPad Air 1 and an iPad Air 2, I'll be able to check those out. So stay tuned here to the channel, because I will be reviewing those. I won't do the dev versions or the beta. There's plenty of people on YouTube that are playing with those right now that you can check out. But I'll be waiting until we have a full-fledged version and going with that. So that's one of the things that'll be interesting. The Files app we've talked about, the mouse we've talked about. The speed is something that Apple have talked about a lot. So they've said things like it's going to be, twice as fast to run apps and twice as small in terms of the update sizes and all of these things. All of that's good. It's a good thing that they're focusing in on speed. Again, your mileage may vary. So don't go, well, I'll just wait for iOS 13 because my clunky old slow iPad Air 2, not that I think they're clunky and slow because I still use one, is suddenly going to be blisteringly fast. No, it doesn't ever quite work that way, because the new OSs are generally more primed for the newer hardware, but anything that makes things a bit faster is going to be better. So the proof will be in the pudding there when we actually get that there. Shortcuts integration. So I use shortcuts for zipping and unzipping and doing some other file things. It's a very cool app. It's available right now. So if you can download shortcuts on your iPhone or iPad right now, and you can set that all up. If you search Pete John's Zip, I show you how to use shortcuts to zip and unzip your files, and it's a super handy thing. So that will be integrated by default, which will be nice. The dark mode. Yes, couldn't finish up without mentioning we're getting dark mode in iOS 13 and iPadOS. So if you've got an earlier device, maybe, and you really want dark mode because it'll be cool. And someone said to me, well, things like GarageBand are already kind of a dark mode. So what's the point? Like, why would you care? Well, for me, the point is that when you then come to here and you're going in, to your Photos app or you're going into other apps, it's really distracting. You're right in the middle of creating, and then you're like, oh, just jump over to Files to grab that other file, and then suddenly it's brightness, and you're like, I want it to be dark. I'm sitting here in my audio cave, and suddenly the iPad is shining in your face. You don't want that. So dark mode should be cool. The last thing I'll talk about, because it came up during the chat here, I think Aaron Masaya mentioned it as well, is headphone jacks. So this device has no headphone jack. It just has a lightning port. Now, it's not a massive issue in terms of just daily use and functionality, because you now have these, which always look bad with my black headphones. But you have the lightning to 3.5mm jack that we can actually just turn any set of headphones into a lightning port. Now, you can't then charge your device, so you need to use something like a wireless charging pad. So that's what I use when I go to bed at night and I'm listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video. I need to plonk this down on my charging pad, plug in my headphones, and I'm good to go. The challenge, though, is that for folks that are using some older hardware, some older sort of interfaces or MIDI keyboards, unlike something like this, where what you can do is use a lightning to USB adapter, plug in your MIDI keyboard, and then use the headphone jack to monitor that MIDI keyboard, you can't do that with this. Now, there's devices, there's little hubs and little USB sound cards that you can get that solve that problem, and I've got a video here on the channel, of course I do, where I review one of those and show you how they work. So if you are in the market for one of these and you do want to still do things like that, you can. But the solution really is, whether you've got the new iPad Pro with the USB-C connection, or you've got the older, well, not older, but you've got an iPhone that just has Lightning, probably using a hub. If you've got it in your sort of home studio, using a powered hub can help you out there, because you can connect things up. And if you're using the Lightning to USB 3 adapter, then you can actually power your device at the same time as you are using it and connecting it to other things. So headphone jack is probably worth considering. If you really have it in your workflow, and if you're buying a new device, then maybe consider something like the second gen iPad Pro, which does still have the headphone jack. Some people prefer to have that. Same with the iPad. Luckily, the iPads, like the iPad Airs and the iPads, still have that headphone jack in them, so that may sort of make your decision a little bit different. If you were on the fence and you're like, do I want a headphone jack or not? Maybe you would. All right, we are close to finishing up. A little bit quicker here today. B. Kern said 17-minute songs. I was mentioning about Aaron Masaya there. So, Jade Star, I can't wait for the new LumaFusion 6 4K tracks. Going to be so good to finish my film. So, Jade Star is working on a bunch of different projects, music projects, film projects. And yeah, LumaFusion is what I use to edit all my videos and is the best. If you're into content creation, which you probably are, and if you're into music, you kind of need to get into video as well. I've said it before, but you need to create a multimedia experience with your music these days. Gone are the days where folks will just sort of just listen to a track. Most times they want to actually see some visuals as well. So yes, consider checking out LumaFusion, and if you are looking to record some music. Hello to YS Boom. In iPadOS, you'll be able to zip and unzip files without using a shortcut. Will you? You will. You will be able to? Yeah. So the new files integration won't actually even need shortcuts to actually do their zipping and unzipping. It'll all be built into the files, which is like about bloody time. They won't have MP3 though. Which is, I know I harp on about MP3, but for some reason, people still want to convert to MP3, and Apple don't let you do it natively. Jade Star put me onto a great app, Voice Recorder 7. There's a video. Search Pete Johns Convert MP3. You'll find it if you really want to be converting your MP3. Alex Cruz says, do you want to know what is so weird? My iPad is just called the iPad. Yes, they are, and that is why, and I've closed down the windows, but that is why if you look on that the compatibility chart, it goes iPad Air 2, iPad, iPad Air. Like, it's not even 2. People are calling it iPad Air 3, but Apple like to do this. They go, oh, it's just iPad. If you remember when they released the new iPad, there was the iPad and then there was the new iPad, and you literally had to go to the shop saying, can I have the new iPad called New iPad, please? Yeah, and that's why I go with the model numbers, because otherwise you really don't know. Like, some people don't even really know what they have because it's so hard to keep up with what you have. Storeplay said, I should try a 30-minute song. That would be fun. Yeah, like I said, the only way I'd ever create a 30-minute song is if it's one take and it's live and it's 30 minutes. Very cool. Alrighty. Okay. And I've got a question here about, yeah, it's relevant-ish, but the new drum kit. So I did. My daughter is starting drums. She had a lesson yesterday. She's having weekly lessons with her drum teacher, and we bought her an electronic kit, which is the Alesis Surge electronic drum kits. And I've got some videos coming up. The reason I'm mentioning this is I've got videos coming up, which will be a review of it. If you are in the market for some e-drums, and also connecting them up to iOS. So, yes, I'm hoping they're class compliant. Didn't really do a lot of research. Well, I did a bit of research. They should be fine. I've seen other people do it. So, yes, I'll be hooking them up to my iPhone, iPad to record in GarageBand. And how much do they cost? So, Jade, it was 850 Australian, I think it was, or 800. It was about around the 850 mark that we paid, and then we had to get her a drum throne as well. So it ended up being just under 1,000 Australian. But these are very nice mesh head Alesis drum kit. Got the multi-zone sensors in the cymbals, got the choke on the cymbals. So yeah, I wanted to get her something that replicated the real drum kit as much as possible, as opposed to a little bit more of the toy kind of kits that you have that can be going around. Let's just see if we have any more final questions, and then we're going to finish up. Alex Cruz, I subscribe to your channel. Thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate it. Goth Demon, does iPad 6 work okay with GarageBand? So iPad 6, and again, the naming conventions are so strange here, but yeah, anything from the iPad Air 2 and above. So the iPad Air 2, then you go iPad 2017, iPad 2018, and iPad Air 3, then yes, they all do work well with GarageBand and would be worth checking out. And the 2017 iPad is still great for music, as Jade Star says. We got Clearly Epic, which is Mr. Steve Mara, my buddy from over on the GarageBand users group. Hello to you. I don't think I've said hello to Marcus Manderson. Welcome to you. Thanks for being here on the stream. If you haven't been here live and you do want to check out a live show, we do this. It's every Sunday morning for me here in Australia, which makes it Saturday afternoon, evening for those folks in the US. And unfortunately, the poor folks in the UK and Europe, it's like the middle of the night for you. So hence why most of you aren't able to come along to these live streams. But I do some other live streams at other times in the evenings here, which is going to be a better time for you. Derry D says, drum session, worth a look for additional drum kits. Cool. Alrighty, we are nearly done here. It has been a little bit quicker than usual because, again, if the content's there, I'm going to keep talking. If it's not, I'm not going to. Yeah, I'll finish up here. I normally say I give you 59 minutes of content and then I do 1 minute of shameless self-promotion. But I've only given you 45 minutes of content, but I'm still going to take maybe just 30 seconds to do a bit of shameless self-promotion. If you are new around here, like our friend here who's just subscribed, and you want to consider subscribing, that would be super cool. If you got some value out of this today or just had some fun chatting about iPads and iPhones, then hit the like button. That tells me that you liked this content and you want to see more just like it in the future. And I've just launched, as I mentioned at the start, for those that are here late, I've just launched my brand new Patreon page. So if you go to patreon.com/PeteJohns, it'll be linked down in the description, then you can check that out. And again, for those that are concerned saying, oh no, does this mean that you're not going to do the same thing here? No, it means I'm going to do exactly the same thing here, if not better, because it just means it might free up some time for me to actually be able to not do some of the other jobs and other things that I do and be able to focus more on creating music and creating videos and doing that here. So if you feel like being generous and supporting the channel, you can do that. Head over to Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month, you can support me. So that would be awesome. But again, everyone has different situations. Everyone has different ability to do different things. So there is zero pressure, and there will be zero change here on the YouTube channel. But it's just a way. A few folks have actually asked me. I think it was Earthling, or I can't remember. Sorry, someone reached out and said, Pete, I want to buy you a burger every now and then. Set up a Patreon page so I can support you. And I'm like, yes, sir. I'll get right on it. And then it took me 4 weeks to do it. So it is there. It is ready to go. So thank you for that. It has been awesome talking about this. I'm sure there'll be heaps more to come in terms of iPads and iPhones. The new iOS is looking cool. The new iPadOS is looking cool. And there'll be more videos coming up here on the channel about that. I've got another couple of things coming out. Just a quick heads up. I'm doing a bunch of masterclasses at the moment, and I'm doing some reviews. Just finished Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine guitarist. There's a review about that coming really soon. I'm mixing and and mastering my new song, which is a very guitar-driven rock song. So there'll be videos about that, including how to master on your iPhone using the Grand Finale app by Clevgrand, which is a very cool new app that I'm just trying out. So we'll be getting into that over the next couple of days and a whole heap more here on the channel. So thank you once again for all those who have been here live. And if you're on the replay, then drop a comment and let me know how you went with this video. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great day, and I'll see you real soon. Cheers.